there. Thanks for joining Canna Advisors post-election webinar. We're looking at after the 2022 election and focusing on what the new adult use business opportunities are. We'll go ahead and get rolling here. I see participants starting to flow in, I guess. Quite a lot of people jumping on here. Let's see, as with all webinars, please go ahead and submit any questions anytime. We might answer them during, or we'll at least have a time for questions at the end of the presentation. Let's go ahead and get started then. Just a little bit on Canna Advisors if you're not familiar. Canna Advisors is a cannabis business consultancy specializing in competitive license applications, startup and advisory services. We're based in Boulder, Colorado. Also have offices in New York and in LA, but we mainly work nationwide. So since 2012, we've worked with clients in 36 states and internationally. You may have heard of our founders, Jay and Diane Zarkowski. They started one of the first medical dispensary and cultivations in Boulder. And Canna Advisors has been in business for over a decade now. My name is Summer Thomas. I'm the Director of Regulatory Operations at Canna Advisors. I've worked in dozens of states throughout the US on license applications, business planning, financial modeling. I'm an attorney by education and just looking forward to chatting today with Bob Wagner, who is our VP of Business Development. Bob really is the genius behind Canna Advisors strategy, where he works with incoming clients to understand what they need. He's a veteran strategist. He's got more than 25 years of experience and 12 years of executive level work at public and private companies. Bob's grown both small businesses, small business startups, and Fortune 100 companies with international services. So really great to have Bob here joining me today and giving us some insights on what's going on in our post-election world. We've seen some changes. And there are certainly some new business opportunities to talk about. So with that said, I will turn the mic over to Bob to just give us a little bit of groundwork on what's going on here.
Thank you, Summer. And my background always sounds more impressive when you say it.
It is.
Business for a while. But thank you, everybody, for joining. Obviously, year after year, we have exciting times in this industry, and this is no different. Heading into another one here with new states expanding, and probably some more coming online. We'll get into that as we go. Want to start by just looking at the election results by state. Even though there were a lot of things that will impact cannabis as a result of the election, the real visual one are the 5 states that had adult use on their ballot initiative. And I think that's the visual because people can picture it. It's pretty cut and dry. There's 5 states, they're either going to say yes or no. When we look at the 5 states, and we had that morning after the election, that election hangover, and we all started pulling up the ballot initiative, see what the final vote was. It came down to 2 out of the 5 states passed their initiatives and 3 did not. And, looking at that, your first gut reaction is that's a loss. I mean, if you were playing a best of 5 series and you only won 2 out of the 5, that's a loss. And it can be viewed that way. But I think the more important part is what were the actual physical results. And if we go to the next slide, of the 5 states that had ballot initiatives, the population was extremely different. In Missouri, you have over 6 million people. In Maryland, you have over 6 million people. Both North and South Dakota are under 1 million, and Arkansas is just over 3. So when you tally it up, 12 of the 16 million people who were weighing in on whether cannabis should be legal or not now have access to legal adult use cannabis. That's 75% of the population that had the opportunity to get legal cannabis, got it. That's a victory no matter how you look at it. I'll always take 75% over 25%. And it adds to the continued tallies. We now have 21 states where adult use is legal. and 48% of the US population now lives in a state where adult use is available to them. And as we get through the presentation here, you'll see other states that didn't necessarily have it on the ballot are also going to have some benefits from this past election. So it's plausible within 2023, the scales tip and we have a nation where over 50% of our population is now living in states where cannabis is legal. So let's move on to what are the biggest opportunities. Do you want to start this one off, Summer?
I think before we get going, I think we had a poll question that we wanted to ask.
Oh, perfect. So I think just as audio here, as we get a poll question, we're interested to know of the people that are attending the webinar today, how many are from the two states that passed it, Maryland and Missouri? It'll be just interested to know what that tally is. So I'm all about percentages, isn't it?
Yeah, and so, okay, I think we got the poll up here. So are you a current license holder? It's just good to know, kind of who we're dealing with here, whether you're thinking about being a new market entrant into one of these states, or whether you already have a license and you're thinking about going from, or you're planning on going from medical into adult use. So please take a second and then vote if you feel like it. Definitely, as Bob said, go ahead and drop your location or which state you're most interested in the Q&A. That would be great. And I think we'll be able to revisit those responses as we go. I'm not a pro at Q&A or running these polls, so forgive me. I think this is my first time doing it, but we'll see how that works out. Thanks to those of you that that submitted a response there. There we go. We got it. Okay. Are you a current license holder? 7% yes and 93% no. So mainly non-license holders here. Good to know. So folks that are planning to go into these emerging markets, which that's what we specialize in. So that's what we'll get into the details of here now. So let's go ahead and talk about states with the biggest opportunities. Bob, did you want to start? Did you want to say anything about Maryland?
Sure. Well, so, Maryland, both of the states that passed adult use already have fairly healthy medical markets. And, we found over the years, states that have a healthy medical market have an easier time transitioning to an adult use because there's already an infrastructure, there's already a supply chain. It has to go through some substantial growth because a supply chain in a retail outlet that was designed for just medical was really appealing to somewhere around 2% of the population that get their medical cards. And now as adult use phases in, that's going to dramatically increase. We hear numbers 16% to 20% of the population partake in adult use when it's available. But, theoretically, it's even beyond that because it opens up your marketing and opportunity to the entire adult population of that state. So we've worked in Maryland. We worked in the original round in Maryland. I believe that was 15 into 16. Maryland did an expansion of their medical program to expand the diversely held businesses. We worked in that one as well, successfully in both rounds. So we know the Maryland landscape. We know what it takes to get done there. And Maryland is going, Maryland and Missouri are different in how they structured their introduction of adult use. Summer, do you want, I can continue on that, but do you want to get into where they'll go from here?
Yeah, I can give some of the, maybe the boring regulatory details on Maryland and some of the history here, but just get into kind of the nitty gritty of it. So let's see. I think it's important to understand the history of the market if you're planning to enter it, right? So knowing that the Maryland legislature approved the bill to open up the medical market back in 2013. And the first medical sales didn't start until 2017. And so this round, Maryland, again, though it was by legislative action, put the proposition on the state constitution, and obviously Maryland voters voted to get that passed. The language of the referendum was very straightforward, and there was an accompanying bill that went along with it. So House Bill 837 gives us a little more detail, some more color into what to expect in Maryland. So let's see some of those details. I think right now you can possess up to 10 grams of cannabis, and there's still a civil fine. There are still some fines going forward, and they're going to do a phased approach. So from January to July, you'll have one set of fines, civil fines, and then after July, there'll be a different set, and there are different amounts of your possession limits for personal use there. But so we have some information there on what's coming in the program, but it's very, very bare bones right now. So that accompanying bill is written, but it doesn't cover the licensing process or all of the limits and details that we would need. Hopefully they will stick to what they've laid out so far and keeping things moving along, because we don't want to give the illicit market an advantage and to get rolling out kind of in advance of the state, sort of how we're kind of seeing in New York right now, right, where it's getting ahead of itself. So it's good if the regulatory process keeps going and we get those rules made. The state has until July 1st, 2023, really to get the rules written and everything in place, because that is when the possession and everything goes into effect. Let's see. I think one other thing to probably touch on is the taxes. That's another good one for Maryland.
And we'll get into a little bit of what you should be doing now. If those of you that are interested in getting into adult use in Maryland, after we go through the different state opportunities, we'll give you some insight as to what you can be working on now and where you should be focusing today for each state.
Yeah, a little more info into kind of the timeline, because each state does it differently when it comes to timeline.
Right. And Maryland is this is pretty standard, where a state will pass the adult use, and what they're really passing is that they're going to allow their state commission to then set up the regulations. Unlike you'll hear as we get into Missouri here, they were pretty quick about doing it. But Maryland now, it's that hurry up and wait, where now we've got to wait and see as the regulations come to fruition.
Yeah. One good thing that's going into effect actually already, I think, is the tax deduction. So they're allowing the ordinary and necessary business expenses to be deducted, essentially sort of doing away with what would be like the 280E repercussions at the state level. So that should help out operators and future licensees when it comes to taxes in Maryland. So great to see more states jumping on that to help with the tax problems and financial burden on a lot of the cannabis companies that they're facing now. Also, it's going to create a cannabis business assistance fund, a community reinvestment and repair fund, and a cannabis public health fund. So great to see those going, and those will be funded with the taxes and different fees that are being paid by the licensees. Let's see. Yeah. And then I guess we should probably touch a little bit on social equity and diversity. We are seeing some positive movements there for Maryland. So the companion legislation does have an avenue for automatic expungement for cannabis related convictions that happened prior. What's important about that is that they're automatic. So you don't have to pay extra money to petition the court in order to get those convictions expunged and totally cleared off your record. So that's fantastic. And then there are ways to additionally petition the court for higher infractions, convictions that you had. If you're serving time, you may be able to petition to be, resentenced. And if you had certain other charges, after a few years, you're able to petition the court to get those expunged. So great to see social equity being included in the Maryland new bill. All right, Bob, you want to get us going on Missouri?
Sure. Missouri, we worked heavily in Missouri as they implemented their medical program a few years back. worked all across the state, won licenses with many different clients there. And Missouri really did a good job of setting up a medical market where there was enough supply chain and enough retail that it made it a little competitive. Those of you who are familiar with the Missouri market, it's a little challenging right now because there are so many medical licenses there. And this is really the kick that Missouri needed to jumpstart and take their cannabis market to the next level. I'll let Summer get into the licensing specifics, but they're moving extremely quickly. They had some updated regulations posted within days of the election, passing the ballot initiative. And really what they're doing there is allowing the adult use market, or those in the medical market that want to sell into the adult use, to apply for licenses, and we'll probably see sales starting as soon as February from those licensees. They did create opportunity for new licenses. As much as there is a robust medical market there, there's certainly room for growth. Not all communities have a dispensary, and what they've done is set up the ability for new micro businesses to come in to create that cottage industry level where people who want to get in the industry can get in and service some of the areas that really need it. Summer?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Yeah, Missouri has been very positive. The people of Missouri have been very accepting of the cannabis industry. They have one of the highest patient adoption rates that we've seen in any state. So I think that just signals the acceptance of the market. And like you said, there's already a very strong number of licenses and functioning market going on in Missouri in their medical program, more so than we see in many medical programs. I'm not sure if we mentioned it for Maryland, but for Missouri, the passage rate was 53% to 46%. Actually, in Maryland was even stronger than that, 65.7 to 34.2%. So the people of both states are very much on board. So let's see, in Missouri, a little bit of history first. Missouri voters passed medical cannabis in 2018. That was via ballot initiative amendment 2, again, with very strong support. And then the first medical sales started in October of 2020. So right in the midst of COVID, they were getting those rolled out. Patient adoption rate, like I said, is 3.3% actually for Missouri. So very high for their medical market. The rules as we have them now will allow new licenses to be issued, including one for micro businesses. The licenses are going to be limited, and the market's already fairly developed with nearly 400 medical cannabis business licenses currently in existence. But they will expand the types and forms of marijuana that would be sold. And then the number of licenses would increase to 144 additional 144 licensed facilities. And each of the, like Bob was mentioning, each of the 8 congressional districts would have at least 6 new retail licenses. So to make sure that those are spread out appropriately, so they're getting access throughout the state. It would create new licenses for all the major license types, as well as a new category for micro business licenses. So those micro business dispensaries or facilities would be a little bit more restricted, and they'd only be able to do business, I believe, with other micro license holders. It ideally is supposed to open up the market to people with maybe limited financial means, also to veterans, those with disabilities, and then people who live in areas that were disproportionately harmed by marijuana, by low-level offenses. So things that we've kind of seen rolled out in other states, doing it, in the adult use round here in Missouri. So, kind of a little bit late. I think those folks will be playing catch up a little bit, but definitely a great opportunity to get into the Missouri market with a smaller requirement there than some of these. You don't have to be an MSO. You can be more of a craft or boutique sort of business and go after that angle.
And I think the beauty of Missouri is it really has the best of both worlds as it emerges into an adult use market. It has an existing medical market that will be able to instantly create a market. So, people who are out there that are excited about being able to go buy adult use, they don't have to wait for 2 years like some other states that have that much time. There's going to be legal sales here within a matter of months. And the second part is there's going to be ample opportunity for those that want to get into the industry. There will be new licenses, there will be new opportunity. And then because the state is ultimately capping the number of licenses, it creates a healthy market. Some markets grow too quickly and there's too many licensees, which makes it difficult to sustain. So Missouri, you've got instant adult use sales, new licenses coming, but a limit to the market so that those that are licensed won't have as much competition to deal with.
Yep, exactly. So great business opportunities. And they also are focusing on social equity and diversity this round. The bill automatically expunges nonviolent cannabis convictions. It allows petition of incarcerated folks to be released. And again, it's doing this automatically in some cases, which is very helpful. So great to see those provisions, as well as home grow also will be allowed for adult use. So that's great there. Let's, I guess, kind of continue on with what we were talking about there a little bit. I think one thing we didn't touch on is kind of timeline a little bit, maybe before we get started here. Just that in Maryland, they're taking a bit more of a measured approach, but I think a realistic timeline and one that we see in a lot of other states. So they have until July 1st, 2023, write the rules and get things going into effect. There'll probably be still a pretty quick transition, but not as quick as Missouri, as Bob was saying. They've pretty much started at a sprint already. I would encourage you to check out the FAQs on Missouri's website. They already have up for adult use. They're very, very helpful. And so, yeah, they've already, I think, December 8th, they're going to allow the current medical operators to apply for transitioning to adult use. And then in February or March of 2023, so in just a couple of months, we can see adult use cannabis sales starting in Missouri already. So that's, right around the corner.
Good pace. So,
good pace, yeah.
Transition. So with this transition comes some challenges. If you were an operator in Missouri and you now know that adult use is coming, it's a great relief. Your market's about to grow. But we've watched this transition now state after state. And as a market transitions from medical to adult use, there's a real maturing to the market in a competitive aspect that comes in. As you know, in Missouri, there's going to be new licenses, same in Maryland. So there's going to be more operators bringing more supply chain, more retailers, and you have to be good at what you do. From a cultivator or manufacturing point of view, you have to build a brand. It can't just be, we have a lot of people who look to get into this industry and their goal is, I want to grow really good craft product, craft flower, or they have a concept for their store. You really have to be the best you can be at this point. Let's skip to the next slide. And here's some examples. You get a complexity of market in cannabis that you just don't have in other industries. I'll give you a quick example. If we were at the end of prohibition for liquor, prohibition ends, it becomes legal to sell. If you wanted to open a liquor store today, you're going to carry some whiskey. You're going to have your rum, your vodka, the 5 brands that are popular, and then a couple off brands. You're going to carry a certain wine selection. You're going to carry a certain beer selection. And it's all different beverages. And it's pretty easy for you to close your eyes and picture what the inside of a typical liquor store looks like. That's a lot different for cannabis because there's a complexity of inventory and product in this business. For Colorado, for example, a mature market, right now there's about 800 different brands that are available, selling over 35,000 different products. And it's not just different flavors of beer. You have products that range from beverages to dry flower to a whole array of edibles, pills, mints, tinctures, concentrates. And how do you as a retailer know which of those products to carry, which brands to carry? You could, and this product has an expiration date on it. So if you're not purchasing right, stocking your shelves right, and meeting your consumer demand, it can cost a lot of money and you can learn some difficult lessons. I was in a dispensary recently that had a bunch of cartridges. I won't mention the brand name, but they were on super low clearance because their packaging was expiring at the end of the month, at the end of this year, and they wouldn't be able to sell it anymore. So they're blowing out what should have been expensive cartridges at a loss because they have to. And that's the complexity of regulations. So not only do you have to know what brands, what products to carry, you have to do it all within your state's regulations. And that's from how are you pricing, how are you promoting it, how are you dealing with your competition? You have to understand that from a regulatory aspect. So those are things that will become more of the problems as these markets grow. And there's certainly huge room for success. You just have to do these things properly. Move on to the next slide. So this is the one salesy point of the webinar today, just letting you know that we've dealt with these in different states over the years. And so we've launched a program that is specific to existing licensees. I know most of the people on the webinar today are not licensed, but I'll just keep this short. We've gone out and brought in experts from brand building to building sales-oriented organizations, retail logistics, and we've put together programs so that as these businesses face the challenges of a maturing market, we can help them avoid some of the costly pitfalls that you can encounter as you do this. And that is important. If you're looking to get a license into this, you're going to be coming in at 100 miles per hour, and doing it right just as you get up and running is important. So certainly, hopefully at some point, if any of you are interested in pursuing licenses, we'll have a discussion and we'll let you know not just the path to get licensed, but the path to make your licensed business successful. Summer?
All right, let's talk about some of the other effects of the election. So not just our two states that legalized and brought us up to 21 adult use states in the US, but some other states that have, had some things shaken up at least because of the election, and that we're potentially, we may see some movement in 2023. So some of those states are Minnesota and Pennsylvania. In Minnesota, we had changes in the governor in both chambers for support going towards cannabis. The governor has said it was a top priority. We've already seen a little bit of, there's definitely been hemp related legislation going on in Minnesota, and some sort of interesting legislation with THC as well. So likely going to see some movement there.
That would put us over the 50%. If we get Minnesota, we're 50% of Americans would have adult use cannabis. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. And then Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania has had some strong support from the governor and lieutenant governor already. We've seen the lieutenant governor won his race to join Congress, and just seeing more and more bipartisan support in all of the state leadership in Pennsylvania, and that would be a huge state to come online.
Pennsylvania is in a unique geographic position now because of New York, New Jersey, and Maryland, and Virginia. Even though Virginia doesn't have a market set up, it did legalize adult use. So Pennsylvania is practically surrounded at this point, and it would just make sense for them to go that path.
Yeah, right. They've really been talking about it for years now, and they have a very strong medical program that's only growing. So great, would be great to see that out of Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and then others that we may see with some action in 2023 possibly Kansas, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, Ohio. Kansas has really been the boy who cried wolf for me. I feel like every few months we all get excited about Kansas. One of our founders used to live there in Kansas, and so that one's near and dear to our hearts, and would like to see that go. They put together the special committee on medical marijuana. They've had a few sessions. That bicameral panel will, I think, come out early next year, probably with some recommendations, and may see some movement there. Bob, anything on Kansas?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering what we're getting excited about Kansas.
I know. But like we put together a committee.
No, every state's a victory.
Exactly. I want to see them come online. I think they're probably getting a little jealous with Missouri making moves right next door, especially with Kansas City.
Nobody can get offended if I make fun of Kansas. I'm from New Jersey, so I know how to take it. So. It makes fun of New Jersey. So.
Let's see. And then others, Oklahoma, obviously, was one that was almost on this most recent ballot cycle, and now is set to potentially have a special election for full adult use legalization in Oklahoma. As we all know, Oklahoma has a very, very saturated, probably is the word for it, saturated medical market already. They put a hold on issuing any more licenses for the medical program in Oklahoma, but may see that special election coming up this year. Then others, let's see, Florida in 2023 probably will, mainly only see licensing happening in 2023 for the medical round. So we're expecting there. And then in 2024 for Florida, expecting to see legalization potentially happen there. Kind of skipping ahead to 2024, but I think we're good to do that now, going on to 2024 and some federal actions. So I was saying, yeah, in Florida, 2024 we'll probably see a ballot initiative. They've already been fundraising and collecting a lot of money from the existing MSOs that are in Florida, including True Leave. And they've already collected nearly, 50,000 signatures thus far. So likely to see Florida in 2024, as well as Idaho. Activists have already filed their proposed medical cannabis initiative there. And Wyoming, they've already collected 40% of the signatures that they need to qualify for the 2024 ballot. So likely see it in 2024 in Wyoming as well. So keeping it rolling, more and more coming online.
And then, nowadays there's so much momentum across the country with adult use and new states getting close to passing medical, that this movement we're getting at the federal level almost seems to not matter. I mean, nobody's paying too close of attention to it, but we had the first bill ever passed by the Senate and signed by the president, allowing research. And that's probably more important than people realize, because cannabis being on Schedule 1, a key factor is it has no medical benefit. That's the definition of Schedule 1. So having this research bill really is positioning the government to, at some point here, be in position to deschedule or reschedule, which everybody's been waiting for. And then, of course, safe banking. Right now, there's a big push to get that through by the end of the year, which would really be a relief for the cannabis industry and all of the operators out there, just to be able to get access to that banking and the funding that might bring at a time where that's important. So,
yeah, definitely. And I think the research bill is huge because it's the first standalone piece of cannabis legislation. So they're paying attention to cannabis, and they're not afraid to write something that's only about cannabis. It doesn't have to be just an add-on tagging along to some other piece of legislation that's coming through. So great to see cannabis kind of finally getting its day, and hopefully that momentum carries to safe banking. That's for sure. And then we should probably touch on a little bit also of the local level. So it's not just the states that are making moves when it comes to new licenses opening up cannabis programs in their jurisdictions. So in addition to the states, also at local levels, in California was probably the biggest winner here for local level licenses. So a lot of people don't know that just because California has had a cannabis program for a long time, not every jurisdiction, not every state is actually on board. They don't all allow businesses, cannabis businesses, to operate within their jurisdiction. So local ballot measures were passed that are going to allow at least 70 new licenses to be available. We have those listed out here in those areas. So those should be coming out over the next few months. I would think we'll see those jurisdictions start to roll those out.
Shall we move on into what we should be doing?
Yeah, what should we be doing?
So this is the important part, and those of you who are with us who don't have licensing yet and you're looking to get into the industry, I think what we've spelled out a timeline in some of the states where there's opportunity. Maryland be a little slower, Missouri a little quicker. And we also, if you're looking to get in the industry, we didn't focus here on states like New York or New Jersey, which are very active right now, or other states where licenses are available, because they didn't play a role in this election. But certainly if those are states that you have any sort of interest in, reach out through our website or a phone, or give us a phone call and we can discuss those states. But what it takes right now is, it's important that when the state finally does announce new licenses and the process for getting it, you don't want to wait till then to get started. Typically things go fast at that point. So up until then, you should be working on putting together a concept. Typically, people will put together a written business plan with what they're looking to do, the people that are going to be involved, where are they going to locate, some financial modeling. And it's clear that as you look to pursue this endeavor, you're going to need the funding to get it up and running, and you'll need to be able to explain to potential investors, whether that's a network of family and friends, or you're going out and talking to independent new investors. You're going to need to be able to get their confidence that you're going to be successful and you know what you're doing. So you should be working on your business plan, your financial modeling, building a team, and an overall concept of what you're going to build. Right now, we're seeing investments getting a little tricky, and those that have the best plans, the best models, are the ones that are getting investment. So again, these are things you should be doing now. Summer, any additions?
I think that's pretty good for the financials. Yeah, I think financial modeling is always the best thing to do first, because you wind up understanding so many nuances about the capital required, the amount of personnel you're going to need to hire, and figuring out so many processes for your business in the process of making your financial model. So yeah, definitely the best place to start.
And when it comes to facility, there's a lot of concerns or a lot of factors. In Missouri, in municipalities, we're allowed to determine the distance from church, school, or daycare. So the state set a limit, but we saw different municipalities change that. Some did away with it altogether. But if you're looking to open a business, you do have to start looking and getting that local approval and finding out where in that municipality you'll be able to operate, and trying to figure out which buildings in that area would be available. And that can take a couple months. So it's worth starting now so you're ready when the opportunity comes.
Definitely start looking at the regions that you want to operate in. Start looking at the current operators, who they are, where they're located, how far away you might have to be from those current operators, looking at potential facilities, facility sizes, what's the pricing look like? Do you want to lease? Do you want to buy your facility? So a lot of questions to be answered there. And then another thing that goes along with your facility and your local jurisdiction is getting in the ear of the city that you're going to move into. So get in contact with the city, know when the city council meetings are, be getting ingrained in your local community if you aren't already, so that you're ready as soon as new rules are rolled out. There are often times that the city isn't even aware. This is not on their radar. They haven't been planning. They don't know that they need to make rules for zoning or for these other things, or at least maybe they know, but they haven't gotten on it yet. So it's good to really kind of push your local jurisdiction along. If you can be a resource for them and help to educate them as this is rolling out, that can also, help you down the road. And they really want to see that you're supporting that local community and giving back too. So that you're working with local nonprofits and that you're supporting the sort of social groups, especially the ones that they've specifically outlined in the rules. That's all for facility.
Well, do we want to move on to some Q&A?
We probably should leave some time for some Q&A. Yeah. Got a couple questions here. See, first off, Bob, how many operations are currently in Missouri?
Sure. So when Missouri first did their medical program, and I'm going back here in my mind to 2018, so bear with me. I think it was 60 cultivators, 80 processors, and 150 retailers in the first round. And I could be off by a handful there, but it was in that area. And I know altogether, the total number of licenses that were available was just over 300. After they issued those original licenses, we know of a number of applicants who won on appeal. So it's continued to go up. Not all of those licenses are active, though. Mm-hmm. You are allowed to win as an entity up to 3 cultivation licenses. And many of those that won more than a single license stacked them and are operating one right now, but have the ability to expand because each license had a square footage limitation. And then, when it comes to the number of retailers, when you've got a state with over 6 million people as large as Missouri, there's certainly room for more retailers. So that's, as Summer was describing, the new licenses that they'll be coming out, they're going to divide them around the state to make sure there's parity between the different areas based on population. But currently it was a healthy number. I believe it was 60, 80, 150. But again, that was 3 or 4 years ago now. So that was even pre-pandemic. So it's like a different era.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, and there have certainly been a lot of appeals afterwards from a lot of the Missouri winners. Let's see what other questions we have here. Thanks for that, Bob. Anonymous attendee asks, really? Safe banking next year?
I think this is why, I was mentioning so much is happening at the federal level and nobody's paying too close of attention to it because we've been teased before.
Right.
Other times where it looks like it's going to happen and it doesn't. So we look at it and you're a little jaded and think, yeah, I've heard that before. But there does seem to be some bipartisan support to get this voted on. And as the number of legal states continues to increase, as we've been talking about through the webinar, almost half of the United States now live someplace where adult use is legal, and a much larger percentage live in a state where there's medical. So at some point, they have to act and get banking available to these businesses. It's in the best interest of every state and all the operators. So yeah. Don't be surprised if one of these days you hear safe banking is making its way through.
Right. And they're trying to do it as a lame duck last ditch. So it might happen ASAP.
Yes. If it happens, it's going to happen in the next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Right. Just there are a couple things they can squeeze in and get done, and safe banking happens to maybe be making the top of the list. So that's exciting.
Another question is Virginia. What's happening in Virginia with adult use? So when Virginia passed adult use last year, I guess it was beginning of last year, or even 2020, what they did is they decided that it should be legalized, but they punted. They said, we're not going to legalize till 2024. And for this to even become official, it has to get voted on again. And then there was another election. a Republican governor came in and kind of stalled the program, and it never came back to be voted on. So it's a little bit of a stalemate right now in Virginia. It's decriminalized, in certain amounts, but there's no real momentum to get a legal market up and running. And it will likely take some sort of legislation advancement before we have any sort of progress there. So that's too bad. And I feel bad for those of you from Virginia. We were really excited that Virginia was going to move forward, and now it just seems to be sitting still, at least for the time being.
Thanks, Bob. Let's see, we have another one, anonymous attendee. I'm interested in the Maryland area. Can you talk more about the numbers / financing and minimum investment requirement to have a setup in Maryland if I plan to work with you?
Sure. So, the amount of investment is going to vary greatly by the type of business and size of business. It takes a lot more capital investment to build a cultivation. That would probably be on the highest side of required capital investment. On the other end, some states have delivery licenses that are very low barrier to entry, and they specifically target, whether it's social equity or they target those licenses for people who wouldn't be able to otherwise get into the cannabis industry. So if you're interested in talking Maryland, shoot us an email on our website. We'll set up a time to call, and we'll talk about whether it's cultivation, manufacturing, retail, delivery. They're all going to have certain different parameters. And then again, there's a lot of decisions that you make that will determine how much that is.
Yep, agreed. Generally talking in the millions of dollars, though, to start a cannabis business, just to be frank with everyone. Some people come into it.
On the cultivation, on the brick and mortar stores, if Maryland does go the route of delivery services, that can open the door. Certainly, dispensaries can range. It's really going to be how big, how big are you going to do it? How ready is your building? But Summer's right. It's not a small investment. And it's often we have people who come to us and they're passionate about getting into the industry and they want to open a business. And one of the best things you can do is partner. You have to look for other like-minded people where together you can form a bigger team, get more access to funds. And I always tell people, you're better off having a smaller piece of a pie than having all of a pie that never goes anywhere. And we can help with those plans as well.
Let's see, this is sort of a follow-up, I think, question. What advice do you have for a wannabe cannabis entrepreneur in Maryland? I think mainly sort of 4 things we talked about earlier, right? Facility.
Right. And this is, it all comes together here. What you have to do is you have to start focusing in on what type of entrepreneur you want to be. There's a big difference between running a cultivation facility and running a retail facility. So what are you good at? Where's your passion? And then, there's other opportunities within cannabis. These, not only is there the opportunity to get a license, this is an industry that's building. So all of these companies everybody who gets a license is going to need help doing it. So if you're passionate and good, sometimes one of the best things to do is get in working with a licensee, learn the industry, find out what you're good at, where your passion is, and then you can focus in more on how do I take my passion and my drive to get my own business up and going. I see a question about residency, specifically to Maryland. That we typically won't know until the regulations are drafted. But in more and more instances, states are not specifically requiring you to be a resident. There's some legal challenges that have broken down that wall. However, one of the barriers to entry we see state after state is local approval. In order to get your license, you will need a properly zoned building in a town that's willing to let you operate. And so those municipalities have the ability to decide if you're a good fit for them or not. So if you're not a resident of the state you're looking to operate in, you should probably either be looking for a local resident that can be, the face of the company as a local resident, or start being active within different communities. And you know, if a town, let's say you live just over the border, but you do your business in a Maryland town, if they know you, know who you are, you're going to have a better track towards getting local approval.
Great, thanks, Bob. Let's see.
Oh, I see the question. So there will Virginia, July 2023. No.
Question mark, exclamation point.
Yes. So that was written into the original bill that they passed, but what it required was a follow-up vote by the legislature before it would become official. And that follow-up vote never happened. So as of right now, Virginia's in a little bit of a limbo. You know, fingers crossed, as Maryland has now passed it, as adult use cannabis gets closer to your border, it puts a little bit more pressure on the powers that be to catch up with the times. So maybe we'll see some progress this coming year in Virginia.
Yeah, I think advocacy is what to do in Virginia right now before they just let it slip by the wayside. I mean,
call your legislator, tell them
yeah,
you adult use cannabis and you want a market to buy it legally.
You want it now.
People want it's what they have to do, or so they said.
Purgatory now, yeah, just stuck in the middle. Let's see, any other questions here? Look like it.
Again, I'm going to throw out there, if you have specific questions or want to talk more in detail, you can put an inquiry in directly on our website or give our office a call. We'll set up a time to talk with you one-on-one and just answer questions that you have and maybe help you find the right direction for what you're looking to do.